Hey guys, and welcome back to another book review. So today's book review, I'm also doing a little bit different. So I actually wrote notes about this book, which probably should have been doing in the first place because I'm so all over the place with my book reviews, but I like to give you like my raw, unfiltered thoughts when I do a book review, but I think sometimes that can come across very clunky and scatterbrained. So especially with this book I'm about to do, I had so many thoughts going on. So I have my iPad here with my little notes written on it. So if I do look off of that, it's because I'm trying to remember things. But anyways, so that's the new thing I'm gonna try to do with my book reviews to help maybe make them a little less all over the place, especially with books like this where they're so interwoven with a plot and stuff like that. So now that that's out of the way, let's get down to the book. So this is The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor, and I had actually never heard of this book. I actually just saw it by accident when I was looking around the horror section at my bookstore. And I guess it's supposed to be really hyped up in the horror community. I'm not really hip with the horror community. I just like horror. I don't like delve into the community. It's more like I'm just here by myself, like, oh, I like books. So anyways, so this is The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor. I think I already said that. And so let's talk about the cover. It's just a bunch of leaves, which I think looks really cool, and it does tie into the plot. And then there is a shadowy figure, just like the shadow of the figure, not a shadowy figure, a shadow of the figure on the leaves, which I think looks super cool. It does look very ominous, which I think suits this book very, very well. So let's talk about the back of the book. So the back of the book says, in 1986, Eddie and his friends are on the verge of adolescence, spending their days biking in search of adventure. The chalk men are their secret code, stick figures they draw for one another as hidden messages. But one morning, the friends find a chalk man leading them to the woods. They follow the message only to find the dead body of a teenage girl. In 2016, Eddie is nursing a drinking problem and trying to forget his past, until one day he gets a letter containing a chalk man, the same one he and his friends saw when they found the body. Soon, he learns that all his old friends received the same note. When one of them is killed, Eddie realizes that saving himself means figuring out what happened all those years ago. But digging into the past proves more dangerous than he could have known. Because in this town, everyone has secrets, no one is innocent, and some will do anything to bury the truth. So right off the bat, I think it kind of pulls you in. There's like a lot going on, and honestly, the back of the book doesn't even touch on half of the stuff that happens in this book. Honestly, I'm not gonna even touch on half the stuff in this book because there's so much and it's so interwoven. Like I said, there's so many characters, so many kind of mini plots within the major plot that it's too much to talk about. You just have to read it for yourself. But so the first thing I want to talk about is the characters. So there's Eddie, who is the main character, Nikki, who is the only girl in the friends group, Fat Gav, Metal Mickey, and Hoppo. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, 5. So there's 5 friends. So like I said, the book not like I said, like the back of the book said, it jumps from 1986 to 2016. So one chapter is 1986 when they're 12, and then the next chapter will be 2016 when they're in their 40s. So it's a very reminiscent of It to me in that way. There's a group of outcasts with one girl. They're kind of outcast misfits who don't fit in. They get into mischief. It's all happening to them. It's centered around their group. So it kind of really reminds me of It, but I'll talk about that a little later when I think I'll come back to that. So let's talk about the characters. So Eddie, the main character, he's honestly, his only defining characteristic is that he is basically a kleptomaniac. he doesn't say that in the book, but he's just like, I collect things. But in reality, he just steals random things from people, like a photograph out of a wallet or a vase from a home or whatever. Like, it's just like random. Like, he's just, and he can't stop himself. He's just a kleptomaniac. He can't stop. Nikki is that girl who wants to be a boy. She tries to fit in. She's like a tomboy. She plays rough. She, you know, she's just one of the guys. Fat Gav is, I hate his name. His name's Gavin, but they call him Fat Gav. And I guess it's because he's overweight. He's just a loudmouth. He kind of like likes the center of attention, you know, and he basically gets whatever he wants. He's the richest out of the group. His family has everything. Like, he gets whatever toys he wants. He's like just that kind of kid. And then Metal Mickey, they call him Metal Mickey because he has braces, and he's just rude and sarcastic. He doesn't really fit in the group, honestly. He's kind of like the odd one in the group that I don't really understand why why any of them are friends with him, because he's kind of a jerk. But whatever. And then Hoppo is just kind of there. He's just very like normal, I guess. He's just kind of a normal kid. He's not really like, I don't think he's anything like them. His mom's a cleaning lady, but he's not like really that weird of an outcast. He's just kind of there. And honestly, they're very just like, I just don't understand how they're friends, because they're just not very like nice to each other. They have a lot of like, they don't even all like get along really as kids. I mean, they do more when they're kids. They're better friends. But then when they grow up, I just don't understand why they're friends. Like, it's just a weird group. And that's where they differ from the Losers Club in my aspect, from the book It, which I was saying, like, they are kind of a losers club, but it's more like they're not as like bounded by friendship, if that makes a lot of sense. Okay, enough about that. Let's see how the book starts out. So it starts out with the friends going to a fair. So what happens is Eddie is getting ready to leave his house, and his mom makes him take a fanny pack, and he thinks that's so lame. Like, he's 12, he doesn't want to wear a fanny pack to the fair. So he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll take it. And then when he gets with his friends, he ditches it and puts his wallet in his back pocket, even though his mom told him that if he goes on rides, it might fall out, but he doesn't listen. Foreshadowing. So later on, they're starting to get their money out to like count to see how many rides they can go on left, and Eddie realizes that his wallet is gone because he wasn't wearing the fanny pack. So his friends don't really want to help him search. Like, they don't really care. They're just like, okay, well, you do your thing, I'm gonna keep going. Which, again, I don't understand why they're friends, because I don't think friends would do that to each other, but whatever. So he goes off by himself, and he's looking around, and he sees this man who's very pale. Like, he's a very odd looking man. Like, his skin is really white, his eyes are white, like, he just looks weird. And this man is staring at these two girls, and Eddie kind of like looks at them, and these two girls are standing in front of this ride. And the one girl's blonde and the one girl's a brunette, and the brunette, like, Eddie thinks is beautiful. He's like, wow, this girl is stunning. Like, and she's definitely older than him. He's 12, she's probably like 16. And he's just like, wow, she's beautiful, like the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And at that moment in time, the ride that they're next to breaks and shears off half of her face in front of Eddie. Just shears it off, and it actually cuts off her leg too. And Eddie starts getting trampled by people. He's knocked down, getting like hit and kicked. And he looks up and he sees that the brunette girl that he thought was gorgeous, that got her face sheared off, is laying next to him. And he's like, oh my God, like, she's dead. And when he gets up to go, she says, help me. And he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I help her? And then the pale white man comes over and he's like, you know, let me help you. They put the belt around her leg to stop it from bleeding, and she actually lives. She gets saved because of Eddie and that pale man, who happens to be Mr. Halloran, who becomes a teacher at the school that Eddie goes to later on. It's summertime right now, so he's not a teacher yet, but he's gonna be a teacher. That's what happens in the first chapter of the book. And then the next big thing that happens is Fat Gav's birthday party. So there's this birthday party going on, but while the kids are dealing with their own stuff, like, you know, playing in summer, there's also stuff going on in the community with the parents. So at the birthday party, you find out that it's around this time that you find out that Eddie's mom performs abortion. She's a doctor who does abortions on girls and women. And Nikki, who is part of the group, she's the girl, her dad is a reverend, and he's obviously anti-abortion because that's, you know, his religion. And it's this whole thing, like, throughout the book. After this scene, it becomes a very, very pro-life and pro-choice. I don't know why I forgot that. So pro-life, pro-choice, it's a very prominent throughout the book. But at Fat Gab's birthday party, the Reverend, he says something to Eddie's mom. We don't know what, because it's from the perspective of Eddie, and obviously they were hanging out in the birthday party. They were having fun, and the grown-ups were doing their own thing. And he says something to Eddie's mom, I'm sure had to do with, you know, her killing babies. And Eddie's dad punches him. He's like, don't talk to my wife like that. And he gets aggressive, and it's a whole thing. And obviously the abortion and religion is very prominent throughout the entire book. It goes from pretty much that beginning to the end. It's a very, very prominent thing. So if you don't like that and you're sensitive to that, I probably wouldn't read this book. But the other thing that happens at Fat Gab's birthday party is that he gets a mysterious present that doesn't have a name on. He doesn't know who it's from, and it's a bucket of chalk. And they all think it's like super lame and whatever. And then Eddie later on talks to Mr. Halloran and tells him about the chalk. And, you know, Mr. Halloran's like, well, when I was younger, me and my friends would make up secret messages and write them on with like chalk to each other, and no one knew what we were talking about. So that's what the boys end up doing. They start writing messages between each other to like, oh, sorry, that's my dog. They write messages to each other to like indicate when they want to meet at the playground, or if they're gonna go hang out in the woods or whatever. And it becomes this thing. And then the chalk is actually a very prominent piece of the book. The chalk drawings end up leading them to the dead body in the woods that they found, that they tell you in the back of the book. These chalk drawings that they didn't draw lead them to the dead body. And the chalk drawings actually turn up a lot. There are a lot of things that occur in the book that they'll have a chalk drawing next to them, and it's very like coincidental, because it's like, who's drawing these chalk drawings? Like, I don't really understand, because it's not like the boys, so you're confused. So that's what's happening in 1986, pretty much. There's a lot more going on, but I can't touch on it all, or this book review would be like 49,000 years long. So in 2016, basically what happens is Eddie is 42, he's a teacher, and he receives a chalk drawing letter. And it kind of just like pushes him back into everything that happens. And he gets a visit from Mickey, one of the friends, Metal Mickey, but they're all older now. And Mickey comes to visit, and he basically wants Eddie to be involved in a book or like a movie or whatever. He wants them to tell their side of the story. He wants them to get their side of the story about what happened with the dead body and everything that went on, because there's rumors and everyone doesn't know the truth, and he wants it involved. And Eddie's just kind of like, no, I don't really know what to do. Like, I don't really feel like it. And like, I don't know, Eddie's just very like, I don't know if I want to go into that. Like, I don't know if I want to like do that. And there's a lot of tension between the friend group in 2016, because there's a lot of stuff that happened when they were younger, and they're not all friends. And I really don't know why any of them are still friends anyways, because they were never really good friends to each other in my perspective, especially when you find out at the end about a lot of stuff that went down. I don't understand why they even wanted to hang out with each other. It's just ridiculous. But like I said, it's very reminiscent of it, with the Losers Club-esque and the like whole group of kids being the main focus. It also jumps timelines, which also happens in the book or the movie. If you've seen that, it goes from when they were kids to adult, kid, adult, kid, adult, you know, like that. It also kind reminds me of Needful Things, if you've ever read that of Stephen King, because the whole town is like out to get each other. Like it's this whole thing where this whole town is just involved. They all just don't know how to, one, mind their own business, and two, like not be crazy people. So that's why it does remind me of it in Needful Things. I don't know if that was his like inspiration, but it definitely is reminiscent of that for me. So just some notes. This is a very intertwining book. There are tons of stories involved. There are the Reverend involved, Mr. Halloran, the kids, the parents, police officers. I mean, just everyone's involved in this. It's all intertwining, and everyone's involved in everything. Like this whole town is involved, and just like you don't know it until the very end when every piece of the puzzle fits together, and then you're like, oh, that's what happened, because it doesn't always make sense until it starts coming together little piece by piece. So I think this book was very fast-paced. It kept my attention, kept me going, kept me reading, kept me moving along through it. I thought it was very fast-paced. Like I said, it was reminiscent of it and Needful Things, which are very long Stephen King books, and sometimes I think they can draw on, and like it's a lot to take in, whereas this is a very more like condensed, shorter version of that, which I appreciate. And the ending is insane. I did not see it coming. And the thing is I should have seen it coming, because the book drops subtle hints about it, but it's so subtle that you don't really realize that you could figure it out until the end happens, and you're like, oh my god, I should have seen that coming, and you just don't. And maybe it's just me, because when I get into a book, I can't really like always piece it together. I'm so into it that I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen next, you know? And I feel like that happened with this book, that I was just kind of like, oh, that I like wasn't thinking it through. I feel like some people probably could see it coming, but I just couldn't. So it was wild to me. Wild. It's so crazy. But again, like I said, subtle hints that I just didn't pick up on, because that's just not how I read. I can't see the subtle hints sometimes. Unless they're very like obvious hints, then I can figure out the ending. But when it's a subtle hint, like so tiny subtle, I don't pick up on it the first time. After I'll read it the second time and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was a sign, like way to go, Erin. But yeah, the ending is insane to me. I read it and I was just kind of like, seriously? You went that way for me? And I have to admit, I liked it. I liked the ending. I thought it was insane. It was so funny. It's not funny like haha, but it's funny like you want to smack yourself on the head and be like, oh my god. But oh, another thing I forgot to mention, the book does deal with dementia and Alzheimer's too. So if you don't like the mention of that, or you don't feel comfortable, I probably wouldn't read this book. But that's all I have to say. Like I said, there's so much more involved in this book. There's a ton of stories, a ton of people that I just cannot tell you, because it's just too much, and I would spoil everything. And like I said, I didn't spoil anything for you in here. So let me know if you've read this book. Let me know what you think about this book. Please tell me I'm not the only one who thought this was like crazy and I'm just like in the minority. But let me know what you guys think. Have you read it? Did you like it? Do you hate it? Do you want to read it? I don't know. If you've read more by CJ Tudor and you want to give me recommendations, I will appreciate it. Or any book recommendations, I love those. And yeah, that's it guys. So feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video.